Yo, so I've been wanting to cook up a video like this ever since I really started making One Piece videos in the first place, and that is dick riding Blackbeard for 5 minutes, or however long this video ends up being. Okay, maybe not full on dick riding, but you get the point. He's the best fucking villain in One Piece, in my opinion at least, and I just think that his strength and overall him as a character is fucking criminally underrated in this community. I just feel like he's overlooked all the fucking time when it comes to the strongest motherfuckers in the world. Like, this dude has 2 fucking devil fruits, come on. He's fucking diabolical. But anyway, let's start from the very beginning of Blackbeard's story that we know of so far. So Blackbeard was found randomly by Whitebeard, where he pretty much desperately begged to join the Horsecock's crew. He was homeless and he was an orphan somehow. We don't know how the fuck he became an orphan. We just know that he didn't have any kind of family that accepted him, at least. But let's really sit back and fucking think about all the shit Blackbeard has seen and done. He was on a crew with Whitebeard. He was probably alive when Zebek was still kicking. He was probably really fucking young, but I'm sure he heard about him at least. He witnessed Prime Roger and Whitebeard go fucking ballistic multiple times, but all the shit that I just named, Buggy and Shanks, and I guess Marco also saw, but they were on Roger's side, except for Marco. But still, he's had a fucking insane life so far, and that doesn't even take into account that he doesn't sleep. I just love the concept of him having twice as much time in life as everyone else. That's such an OP-ass advantage. He's like 40, but he's technically lived twice as much as everybody, so he has the experience of an 80-year-old in a 40-year-old's body. Another thing we see when Roger and Whitebeard fought was that Buggy and Shanks pretty much immediately knew that something was off about Teach. It just seems like common knowledge in the One Piece world that there's something wrong with fucking Blackbeard. It's almost like upon meeting him, everyone just feels like something's off. But from then onward, Teach doesn't do a whole lot, at least from what we can see. He somehow got absolutely fucking 0 bounty while he was on a Yonko crew for like 20 years. He's gotta be like a Nepo baby or some shit for that to be possible. Even fucking Chopper, the pet of the Straw Hats, or whatever the fuck he's referred to, has a bounty, but the guy who scarred Shanks doesn't get shit. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Blackbeard scarred bitch-ass Shanks at some point before meeting Luffy and after Roger died, and this was before the devil fruit and everything. He did that shit with the lame-ass Wolverine claws. But it may seem like he relies pretty heavily on his fruits now, but he could clearly move fucking differently if he's able to scar one of the fastest motherfuckers on Earth. That beetle-built bitch can move, don't get it twisted. But that brings another question. Why the fuck did they even fight in the first place? Did the red hair pirates fuck around with the Whitebeard pirates? Or was this a thing just between Blackbeard and Shanks? And to be honest, I'm kind of leaning towards the second option. The red hair pirates at that point would get fucking clapped by the Whitebeard squad, so that automatically kind of makes it unlikely. And Shanks has some kind of celestial dragon blood, and he's kind of a snitch too, which, you know, he might be snitching on Blackbeard in the present day. Let's not get into that right now. Well, Teach is the biggest D that we know. It makes perfect sense that they would kind of have some bad blood towards each other just naturally. We know that Blackbeard knows practically everything there is to know about the world. He's basically a Nico Robin without the fucking tits. Wouldn't be shocked if the motherfucker could read poneglyphs. And Blackbeard has a pretty heavy affiliation with Zebek, and we know that Shanks has a heavy affiliation with God Valley, so Blackbeard is after fucking Shanks' neck. And Shanks is over here fucking shaking in his boots because he knows he can't stop his ass. I mean, Blackbeard is essentially a second main character. He's always 2 steps ahead of Luffy at all times. Nobody else is ever going to be able to take him out other than Luffy. But anyway, that's enough about that. Let's move on to the first time we see Blackbeard in the story. So he's just fucking freaking and vibing in a bar in Jaya, and despite getting in a little scuffle with Luffy about fucking pie flavors and shit, he's pretty chill. He starts spitting some pretty inspirational shit to the squad and drops some pretty insane fucking bombs about dreams. He probably had a top 5 panel in One Piece, to me at least, in the moment that he said people's dreams never end. That shit just goes hard. It's fucking blank, and it's just Blackbeard and like Luffy and shit. That shit goes so fucking stupid, which is pretty fucking crazy now considering we know that devil fruits are pretty much conjured up by people's dreams, and Blackbeard literally can't dream because he can't sleep. But that's just a fucking special moment to me because you could see in Luffy's face that he kind of feels what Blackbeard's laying down. And for once in his fucking life, Luffy actually shuts the fuck up and hears Teach out, but he knows just something is off about him. You can see it in his face. You never see Luffy make that fucking expression ever at any point in the story except for that moment. It's crazy. But just like I said earlier, everyone who is around Teach almost immediately knows he's different. He's almost an entirely different person that he was just a few minutes earlier in the bar. And Zoro referred to Teach as a they after the good interaction with him, I guess. And you know, that means a lot from Zoro. He may be extremely racist, but he respects fucking pronouns. But after all that, Blackbeard tries going after Luffy right before he sets off to Skypiea, because he probably found out that he was a D from the bounty poster, and I don't really think it was about the amount of the fucking bounty. I think it was more because of the fucking D. The Straw Hats narrowly escaped, so Blackbeard had to settle for Ace instead to really lock in his fucking warlord title. So just from that, back when Blackbeard was a weak little shit who barely knew how to use his devil fruit, he single-handedly caused the craziest arc and stretch of fucking arcs that we have ever seen in the entirety of One Piece. This is Blackbeard's world, and we're just fucking living in it. Next time we see Blackbeard, it's in Impel Down, I'm pretty sure, and he goes to fucking recruit Shiryu and a few other Blackbeard fucking pirates, and he had a little face-off with Luffy, which ended up in Teach kind of getting his ass beat, I'm not gonna lie. He's just oddly weak in some moments. Like in the fight with Ace, he seems to just be able to turn his fucking garbage mode on and off. And then the infamous Marineford arc goes down, and of course Teach's bitch ass comes out at the very end while everyone's tired or dead to scoop up the fucking devil fruit he wanted. The fact that Blackbeard is just such a little fucking bitch, it makes me love him so much more. Not only because I'm a little bitch too, and I love bitch ass characters, it's also because he's a true fucking pirate. Pirates are pieces of shit, and Teach just isn't a good dude whatsoever. He wants to win under any circumstances. He doesn't give a fuck about honor or any of that. He doesn't care how he wins. He just wants to win. He will kill the man who raised him if it means that he can move up in the world. Teach jumps Soul Edward in the most bitch ass way possible and does the impossible by fucking taking his fruit and being the first person that we know of to have two fruits at the same time. Everything that Teach does is according to his plan. He could have planned this shit since he was a homeless orphan. His plan was get on a Yonko ship, stick around until they find the dark fruit, obtain warlord status by turning in someone with a D, at least I assume. So he has the authority to go into Impel Down to get some fucking OP crewmates. And since he turned in Ace, that would force Whitebeard to pretty much kill himself at Marineford, which is the perfect opportunity to snag his broken devil fruit. If he would have done this with Luffy, it would probably have been Dragon, and Teach probably would have taken fucking Dragon's fruit in that moment. Either that or Shanks. You know, Blackbeard can't really lose in this fucking plan, unless he dies to Shanks. I mean, he did pussy out against fighting Shanks at Marineford, I guess. He's just so calculated, and I don't think a whole lot of people really appreciate that about him. He's actually fucking brilliant. But after all that shit, he of course becomes a Yonko, replacing the man that he fucked over. He hasn't really done a whole lot of memorable shit after that. He's been kind of moving in silence since then. We know he's trying to acquire pretty much any fruit that he can get his hands on, and recently with Teach trying to take Boa's fruit, he was scared away by Rayleigh, and I think Teach knew that he could take old ass Rayleigh, but then again, maybe not, because Teach kind of saw Rayleigh firsthand at his absolute peak, so he could, you know, he might have an actual reason to pussy out of that. I don't know. Teach is smart as fuck because he won't deviate from his plan and he won't fight unnecessary fights. The most recent move Teach made was fighting Law, which makes perfect sense. He knew Kid, Luffy, or Law would cross paths with him after Wano. And I don't blame him. All three of them have fucking pretty broken fruits. I mean, some are more OP than others, but at least two of them are absolutely fucking OP as fuck, literally. Also, Blackbeard is the only pirate that I know of in fucking One Piece that's based off of a real life pirate, and the real Blackbeard's flag is a skeleton stabbing a heart with 3 little dots. So Teach fucking up the heart pirates kind of makes sense. And the 3 dots also play into his theme of 3 guns, 3 possible personalities, I guess, 3 heads on his fucking flag, the 3 little claws that he fucking scratched Shanks with. It's almost like Teach is the most fucking mysterious character in the series. We see him all the time, and I mean, we pretty much know his powers. We just don't know how the fuck he's able to do the things he's able to do. But, you know, that's about it. Blackbeard's the best villain. I don't give a fuck.